The new month is coming up fast, and we know there's some pretty good releases coming. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the top 8 new games of May 2021. Starting off at number 8, it's Subnautica Below Zero. So the original Subnautica hit early access back in 2014 and developed into a pretty awesome game. It is essentially the premier underwater survival game. Nobody has really done it better, but where the original only had a couple of pretty small islands to explore, there's actually significant landmass here in Subnautica Below Zero. That's of course not the title change. Below Zero certainly signals to you that this is taking place on a planet where there's ice, which actually adds another level to the survival in which you have to avoid getting hypothermia. So just like in the original, you're going to be collecting resources, crafting tools, building bases, building new ships, etc. But now you're also going to be exploring a lot more significant structures. The world apparently has more to offer in terms of like actual explorable locations. And I think the addition of a lot more land-based gameplay is going to make the weather a lot more important. Speaking of which, there is significantly more weather. You're going to be seeing, in addition to, wind, stuff like snow, fog, even hail. There's also a fair amount of new gadgets like a booster tank, a mineral detector, and something that I consider probably obvious and weird that it wasn't in the first, but like a flashlight helmet. It looks like a worthy follow-up to Subnautica that adds enough stuff to it where it's actually going to be worthwhile to play, which I will definitely be doing on either the PS5, Xbox Series X, PS4, Xbox One, or Switch on May 14th. And number 7 is Famicom Detective Club for the Nintendo Switch. These are some wild remakes to be seeing in the US. These are games that were never seen here. They are murder mystery stories, essentially kind of visual novel, but like way before a lot of the norms were established in that genre, so there's some different stuff about it. There's actually 2 remakes coming out of what is ostensibly a lot of murder mystery. Like there's many more games they could be drawing from. So the 2 games we are seeing are The Girl Who Stands Behind and The Missing Heir. In the latter, you are solving a murder mystery in a haunted village, while in The Girl Who Stands Behind, the former, you investigate a supernatural rumor at a Japanese school. These were originally like fully text-based adventures. They did have images, but they were so much more rudimentary than what we see here. Like what we're looking at now is like essentially an interactive manga. And if nothing else, sort of the excavation of Nintendo's history to try to make something different, I think is really cool. I have obviously never actually played these games. I'm really just more aware of them due to Nintendo history. So like on that level, I think that it's gonna be really interesting to play. I'm probably gonna pick one of them rather than buy both, but they are both coming out on the Nintendo Switch on May 14th. And number 6 is Hood, Outlaws, and Legends, which is a stealth PvPvE heist game, which gonna go ahead and say just like that description alone makes me interested in it, but it's also got a really cool aesthetic. Like it reminds me a lot of Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice and kind of the way it looks. However, it's obviously a completely different type of game. Essentially, the way it works, there's 2 teams of 4 players. Each of these teams is attempting to execute a heist, which may be, stealing an item or fulfilling some kind of criteria like that. These 2 teams have to deal with like guards and obstacles and, other various environmental and artificial intelligence oriented challenges. It's obviously not just stealing, it's also getting away with it. And then once you take home your ill-gotten gains, you can invest it in perks, weapons, and cosmetic stuff. It is a game that you're going to have to purchase, but the content will be coming in seasons, and the initial price isn't too high. The entry fee is $30, the year 1 edition is $50, and the year 1 edition comes with all of the battle passes for the first 3 seasons, some early access time, and some kind of item pack. Each of the characters that you can play as has various different skills in terms of physical combat, but as well as mystical abilities. And apparently beyond the stealth elements, there is also some pretty brutal combat. I think this is a pretty good looking game and something that I'm definitely going to try out when it lands on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on May 10th. At number 5 is Miitopia, a role-playing game in which you play as your Nintendo Mii avatar. Now, this is a remake of a 3DS game that came out back in July of 2017. Some of the elements of this game are based off a previous game from that, even called Tomodachi Life. You may or may not be familiar with. Essentially, that's kind of a life sim game in which you deal with various, I don't want to say Sims-like scenarios because it's not fully that, but it's also not an RPG. Miitopia is kind of a combination of those elements in and added more RPG elements. Like you have kind of traditional RPG turn-based combat. It's definitely a really unique game, and I think that it's cool it's coming to Switch. They've added a couple of things to it, like some customization options, and they've also added a companion horse, which honestly, if this is a game that you're into, the ideas that it has is actually a pretty good idea. Nintendo's really idiosyncratic though, so it's kind of difficult to tell you exactly what this thing is and just like a little succinct thing, but it is unique. I've always been more of a fan of like the larger Nintendo consoles, and when they merged everything with the Nintendo Switch, I was really happy because I knew that these types of games would cease to be like handheld exclusives, like you could play them on the TV. And so that's kind of what I'm excited about here. Miitopia lands on the Switch on May 21st. At number 4 is Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is a thing that's been a long time coming. Mass Effect has always really been this huge series that is not terribly consistent between games. Not necessarily in terms of story, but more in terms of experience. That's what BioWare aims to address in releasing this new Mass Effect Legendary Edition compilation of the original trilogy. For me, that is enough to get me in the door. Like, I love those games, but I hate going back to Mass Effect 1 because there are aspects of that game which are so frustrating, impossible not to mention the Mako sequences, but a lot of the combat stuff is just like not good compared to the other games. Mass Effect 2 probably being the best. But in terms of graphical overhaul, we've gotten a pretty drastic difference in the first Mass Effect, particularly in the lighting. There is something about the original's lighting that is not good. When you look at it today, you're like, ugh. Overhauled that. Character models significantly better. Like, for instance, the Mass Effect 3 FemShep is now the default FemShep, and everything just looks significantly better. Besides that, we see other quality of life improvements, like not restricting guns to classes and allowing you to control individual team members like you do in Mass Effect 2 and 3 rather than just your whole team. If you're interested, there's this huge post about things that they have done to make Mass Effect 1 consistent with Mass Effect 2 and 3. It would be impossible to detail all of it even in like a half an hour. It is a really detailed, really cool post, honestly. If you're interested in these types of things beyond just the fact that it's Mass Effect, like those sort of details, check that out. But ultimately, the real thing is that Mass Effect Legendary Edition is coming to PC, PS4, and Xbox One May 14th. At number 3 is Monster Harvest. All right, so what do you get when you combine Pokemon and Stardew Valley? You get Monster Harvest. Essentially, you're making a farm, you're building, customizing a house, crafting furniture, crafting tools, planting and growing crops, and also collecting monsters, battling the monsters, and taking part in a world that a whole monster hunting and battling culture has arisen in. You've got turn-based battles, very much like Pokemon. You've got dungeons, and ultimately a foe in the evil corporation Slime Co., which you're supposed to take down eventually. There's a lot of interesting stuff here, from seasons to obviously a large selection of monsters, and the art style, which manages to take the kind of pixel art and brings it into a sort of 3D mode. I really like what it looks like, and I think that it goes above and beyond what you might expect if you said, hey, what do you get when you combine Pokemon with Stardew Valley? Which is exactly how I started this up. I'm really interested in it. It's coming to PC and Switch on May 13th. At number 2 is Biomutant, a game that we have been waiting on for a long time, and looks like it's finally going to land. A game that I think has a lot of potential to be a really cool game, because it's a big open world adventure action RPG where you build a biomutant in the character creator, and like all of the traits that you select, like if it's a heavy biomutant, if it's a light one, if you fly, etc., all affect the gameplay significantly, which I think is cool. But the game itself also has branching storylines where the world sort of gets poisoned by this oil that comes out of the ground and messes everything up. You're out attempting to save the tree of life, and all of your choices will change exactly how that plays out. I don't know to what level the story branches. We'll obviously see as we play it, but the gameplay we've seen, I think, looks really solid. It's one that I think has a lot of expectation because, again, it's been around for a long time. So I'm super interested in playing it. It's landing on PC, PS4, and Xbox One on May 25th. And finally, at number 1, it's Resident Evil Village. So this is a game that is set a few years after Resident Evil 7 and brings us the same protagonist, Ethan Winters. It does look a hell of a lot more integrated into the overall Resident Evil world, but that can mean a lot of different things. We've got a beautiful mansion, which is of course like the primary Resident Evil thing that we're dealing with, but apparently the entire village itself is explorable. And in a lot of ways, I think that kind of resembles Resident Evil 4, which a lot of people love. When they updated the controls to Resident Evil 4 in the remake, that's when I started to enjoy it. And I particularly enjoyed Resident Evil 7, so I kind of think that this is going to be along the lines of something I'm going to really like. And then, of course, there's 9-foot-tall hot lady. So, I mean, yeah. Resident Evil 8 Village hits on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Stadia on May 7th. A quick bonus for you as well, Days Gone, the very, very good PS4 survival game, is landing on the PC. If you are interested in that world and just didn't want to have a PlayStation 4, a lot of PC gamers are that way, and who can really blame anybody who really cares about like graphical power? Days Gone was a hell of a game, and I think that you guys are really going to enjoy it. It's landing on Windows on May 18th. I would definitely recommend it. That is all for today. What games are you going to play in May? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.